You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today. What is up? Welcome back. How we all doing? This is JE Live, and I am Jake Ellenbogen, for those of you who are here for the first time. We are going to be talking about Odell Beckham Jr. I know we've done this a lot. Probably people are tired of it, but we did have a little bit of some news come out. Just a quick shout out to my guy, Brandon Barnes. He gave me a text, let me know what was going on, because I don't always see everything, and I don't really watch a lot of NFL Network, ESPN, Fox Sports 1. So when people are like, hey, did you see this? Odds are 99.8% of the time I didn't see it. So appreciate him bringing that to my attention. So yeah, Jim Trotter, he is a reporter for NFL Network, and basically he comes out and says, look, you know, you have Dallas going out and getting Brandon Cooks. And obviously that's a huge move for them, but that takes them out of the Odell sweepstakes. And so now, you know, the question is, you know, who's there, who's in play for Odell? And, you know, he goes on to mention the Rams and say that they're very much still keeping tabs on him, very much still interested, have not ruled it out. Les Snead has had communication over the last couple months with his, with his agent. Odell has been in touch with Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp. So there is some traction here. Now, I often get the question, Jake, why on earth would Odell consider the Rams, considering they just got rid of Jalen Ramsey, they let Greg Gaines walk, they got rid of Bobby Wagner, they got rid of Leonard Floyd, they let Matt Gay walk, they let Nick Scott walk. Why would he come here? And I will say I understand your point, okay? I understand it. I'm not the biggest fan, as we all know, of the Rams' moves. I've been very open about my thoughts on the Rams. So many people don't even really realize it's me almost, because it's like, Jake, I'm used to you being the positive one, the optimist. Why are you so negative? Well, I'm always giving you my true thoughts on the team, and I've been wrong before and I've been right before. And right now I could absolutely be wrong about what the Rams are doing, but I feel like this is kind of a wasted year. When you look at the core pieces they have, they're getting older. You don't want to waste a year of Aaron Donald, Matthew Stafford, and Cooper Kupp. Football is not a guarantee. These games are not a guarantee. These seasons are not a guarantee. No contract year is a guarantee. So that was my thing. But here's why Odell might consider the Rams, and why this isn't just a clickbait title like some might have you believe. Odell is going to cost money. No doubt about it. You're not going to get him for $1 million like the Bengals are getting for Nick Scott this year. Yes, that's right. His cap hit is $1 million. But hear me out. Odell Beckham Jr., as Jim Trotter brings up in his report, is looking for a combination. He wants to win, but he also wants to get paid. Now, the best way for him to get paid, because this is a league where, yes, Odell has made a name for himself, and he is a very talented player. I love the guy. I think personally he would help any team. But it's a league that we're starting to see, okay? The markets, have you seen the running back market? Have you seen the cornerback? I mean, these markets are starting to dumb down a little bit, right? These teams aren't paying as much as they used to. I'm already starting to see it. I mean, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, $8 million a year. He's one of the best safeties in football. The bottom line is teams are starting to fight back because we're at a point where how much more can the cap and how much more can the natural inflation of the league take before it becomes just simply too much and the league is just ridiculous and it's overrun with everybody wanting to get paid. You can't just have constant, it gets more and more and more and more and more each year. It's just not, it's not sustainable for any league. So really teams are starting to push back a little bit, even though we're getting the YouTube money coming in, the YouTube TV money, we're starting to see teams push back a little bit. We're starting to see focus more on the quarterbacks, and we're starting to see more focus on the trench players. And even still, you could argue that, I mean, Tunsil's deal's huge, but Orlando Brown Jr. deal, his is not. So what's going on here? Okay, really, let's think about it. If Odell wants to get paid the most money, and he truly believes in himself and is not just trying to get a money grab out of this and then, take the money and run, right? And stay the whole season on the injury report. If Odell truly believes in his ability, believes that he can be a top receiver, then honestly, his best course of action is to go where he's most comfortable. And that would probably be the last place he played football. And that would be with the LA Rams. It would be with Matthew Stafford. It would be with Cooper Kupp and Van Jefferson. And that offense was Sean McVay. That is where he would be the most comfortable. So think about this, okay? Just think about it. Odell signs a one-year deal. There's two options. There's multiple options, but two options I thought of here. Odell signs a one-year deal. Odell goes to the Rams on a one-year contract, and the offense being heavily focused on said offense, right? Because the defense is letting all these guys go, and there's not a lot of cap space, but they do have talent in the offense. No one is really left. It's pretty much intact, right? The offense, while staying healthy, takes a pretty big leap forward to what we saw in 2017 and 2018. And they basically look like the Detroit Lions of last year. A great offense, a bad defense, right? Say that's what happens. Odell can cash in on that now, taking that one-year deal. So Odell took that one-year deal with the Rams in this hypothetical. The Rams became a really good offensive team, and he cashes in big time this offseason because he's proven he came back from the second ACL tear. He went back to the same team and did pretty much the same or more, assuming more. So now he's reset his market. Now he could get a nice fat deal with the Rams because they're going to have money to pay him the following year, or he could just go and sign with somebody else. So he resets himself. And the reason why it was so dangerous for him to take any sort of one-year deal last year is because if he did that and say he didn't look very good, now he didn't reset his market, he probably has to take another, and honestly, he's going to have to take less money. So his prove-it year goes down even more. But think about this. That's the first option. The second option could be the Rams are like, you know what? We are so sold on Odell Beckham Jr. being not only a focal point of our offense, but being the guy because we're not going to pay Van Jefferson. We've already decided we're not going to pay him. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. We decide we're not going to pay him. Okay, we'll pay Odell instead. And is that maybe not the best move? Maybe, because Van is a lot younger. But if they believe Odell is that much better, then maybe they think about this. So think about this move for a second, okay? With eyes up next year and beyond. So you sign Odell, you sign him to a one-year deal, you sign him to a 3-year deal. So you sign him to a 3-year deal. And the first year of this deal is going to be something that allows you to put him into your cap because it's going to be hard to afford him. Odell agrees to that. And in doing so, when he signs that contract, the signing bonus kicks in immediately for the 2024 season. So his 2024 contract is guaranteed. It's done. And it is an elevation. So say you pay him around, I don't know, $6-7 million this year. Odell then gets that guaranteed next year for, say, 14 to 16 million, because that's when the Rams will be able to afford that. And then 2025, half of that, or like maybe 25% of that, is guaranteed. Okay. So now Odell has some security. And I think that's really all he's looking for. He's not looking for $20 million. Like he said, he never asked for that. He's not looking for $20 million. You know, I don't know where that came from. He doesn't know where that came from. But what I will say is that I've heard, this is pretty much what I've been told. And Trotter is saying pretty much what I've heard is that the Rams are not out on OBJ. Okay. So all of this being said, why does this make sense for the Rams? We talked about why it could make sense for Odell. You get the security, you get a chance to get back with the fact that you had synergy with that offense, synergy with Stafford, synergy with Kupp. That makes sense. But why does it make sense for the Rams? If you're the one who wants to rebuild and all of that, why does that make sense? And that is a fair question that one could ask. But what I would say is this. I think the Rams have put themselves in a position, if you want people at SoFi Stadium, if you want fans in attendance, you have to show them some love here. You have to be able to, while yes, you're doing this whole rebuild thing, yes, okay, maybe you do this, maybe you do that, the fans are trying to buy into it with you. They're trying to be like, all right, we've propped ourselves up for 2024, right? But here's the thing. The fans are not going to pay to go to SoFi Stadium. Like the bulk of fans, people will still pay, people will go there. But SoFi Stadium is expensive. Any stadium in the NFL is expensive. The fans are not going to pay to go to SoFi Stadium, maybe, you know, half the season or whatever, if this team isn't putting up points on the board. You can say what you will about the defense. The defense will take a step back. We know that. They got rid of a lot of talent. But if this offense doesn't score points, you lose the casual fan. Do you think casual fans care more about the defense or the offense? I'll tell you, every single time it's the offense. People like scoring, folks. People like scoring. And when this team is focusing on building the offensive side of the ball, who better than to go out and get OBJ? And so that is my thing. They haven't ruled it out. It's very much still in play, as Jim Trotter reported. And I honestly can see this getting done. I think he's either going to the Rams or he's going to sign with Kansas City. That's what I think. Because I think Dallas was very much in play. And I think they balked because of the fact they were a little bit worried about his, you know, how much he would want and his injuries. And so they went out and they got a sure thing that they knew in Brandon Cooks, who has proven year in and year out consistently that he is one of the most consistent receivers and dynamic receivers in football. And that is what they decided to do. That's why they went after Brandon Cooks. But when you look at Odell has looked really good in that workout. Odell can still move very well. And his last game that he ever played was in the Super Bowl for the Rams. Let's not forget, that was last year, okay? It may not have been last season, but it was last calendar year. Last calendar year, folks, Odell Beckham Jr. towards ACL in the Super Bowl. We cannot forget, it's not that long ago. People say 2 years ago. It was not 2 years ago. The Rams played the Bengals in the Super Bowl in February of 2022. That was not that long ago. It really wasn't. So when you think about it, just a little bit over a year and a month, you think about it and you're like, wow, okay. So Odell took the entire year off, hasn't played football since he was wearing horns. Is it that crazy to suspect that maybe he comes back? I don't know. Now, what I will say is this. People ask me, Jake, where are the Rams going with this? Are they going to get anybody in free agency? My guess, it's going to be maybe a veteran offensive lineman, cheap veteran offensive lineman, or Odell. I don't think they're getting really anybody. They're definitely not getting anybody big named aside from Odell. He'd probably be the biggest name. I would say Odell Beckham Jr., Troy Hill, and maybe a veteran offensive lineman. Those are the three options that they would have. And they can't get all of them, but I think they could get one of those three things that I mentioned. Now, is it crazy Is it absolutely crazy to assume that Odell could be a Ram next year? Absolutely not, because right now we don't even know what his market is. We saw it was starting to heat up, and Dallas was the front runner, and everyone was talking about Dallas, and they go out and they trade for Brandon Cooks. So we don't know. You know, I think that's the thing that's kind of misunderstood, is that we don't know what his market is going to be. The injury, I'm not worried about personally. Okay. I'm not. I'm not worried about the knee. I think the knee is okay. I think it's going to be fine. You know, I mean, at the end of the day, the Rams have to make a decision. Like, do you really care about your offense, or was that just a hogwash statement? Is that not true? Like, are you really trying to compete this year? If you're really trying to compete, this would give the fans a sense of, okay, there's some urgency here. There's some desire here. They want to win. You don't go out and get Odell Beckham Jr. in a year where you expect to be bad. You go out and get Odell Beckham Jr. in a year where you're trying to win. You're trying to improve your offense, and you're trying to take it to the next level. And by having Odell, by having Van Jefferson with Cooper Kupp, Tyler Higbee, Hunter Long, we'll see what he does, Bryson Hopkins, Cam Akers, Kyron Williams, Tutu Atwell, and Ben Skoranek, well, now you have all sorts of weapons, and you have the draft. So think about that. You have the draft and all of that. But with that said, would the Rams really get Odell Beckham Jr. before the draft? I don't think so. I think this thing's going to go on for a little bit. It's not as simple as just, getting rid of it. And I'm going to look up right now when there's a certain amount of time you have to wait for the compensatory picks to not count. I'm trying to find when that would be. Let's see here. I believe it's after the draft, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, I think it'd be after the draft. But anyway, you get my point. I think Odell, after the compensatory formula thing goes through, I think the Rams would be in there. But I also think Kansas City will be in there. So you might have to do some things that you don't want to do, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. If you want OBJ, you'd have to do some things that you don't want to do. Maybe you didn't want to, you didn't want to do a, restructure. Now you have to do a restructure. They still can restructure Kupp. They still can restructure Donald. Those would give us those would give them the most flexibility, so to speak. I'll actually bring that up right now. So let's see here. Let's look at over the cap. What can the Rams do with those two contracts? That's the question. How much space can the Rams open up? That's the real question here. Let's see. Okay. So the Rams right now, according to Over the Cap, have $8.4 million in cap space. If they restructure Cooper Kupp and Aaron Donald, they could save $34 million. Now, that's probably not the full. They're probably not going to do a full restructure, but they could. 14 and 20, give them $34 million, according to Spotrac. So that would put them. They would have about $42 million. But again, that restructure is not a base salary. That's a full restructure, according to Spotrac. So that might not be something that they want to do. According to Over the Cap. Spotrac gives you the base salary, which I will show you right now, or I will tell you right now, what we would probably most likely be looking at if they did something like that. So if the Rams went with a base salary restructure of Aaron Donald and Cooper Kupp, or one or the other, I'll break them both down. as soon as it loads. That's the problem with these sites. There's so much data on those sites, it takes forever to load, which is great because when you're live, you don't have all that time to wait. Wow, over 200 people. Really appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe if you haven't already, and be sure to comment. I will be highlighting those comments in just a bit. Honestly, the comment highlighter thing is giving me problems. So, love technology. There's always something wrong with it. Okay. For whatever reason, Spotrac is taking 10 years to work. So let's try maybe on the iPad. See if that helps. Okay, manage roster. We'll see here. Because over the cap, $34 million they could save. And that is this year. Yeah. So I do see them restructuring some more if they have to. I don't think they do both. I definitely don't think they do them like a full restructure. I think it would be a base salary. I don't think they'd go crazy and do like exactly what Over the Cap is having there with $34 million, but I could see them doing a base salary restructure for at least Kupp. That would save him about $12 million. The Kupp one's more accurate. The Donald one is interesting. His contract is different than everyone else's. It's just a different type of deal. So to restructure that, saving $20 million, Spotrac is just not working. So I don't know what's going on, but I guess the site's down right now. But yeah, Over the Cap has $34 million. Even Allen Robinson's restructure would be about $10 million. Havenstein, they could save about $4 million. Higbee, they could save $4 million. Brian Allen, they could save $2.9 million. There is money to be moved around if they could get Odell to happen. Okay. And that's not necessarily dead cap either, because they're not making a transaction where somebody is gone. You know what I mean? I don't necessarily agree with that, and here's why. First off, they haven't really told us what they plan on doing going forward, because if we really knew what they were doing going forward, the only way we would know is that they trade away Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, and Aaron Donald, because that would tell us, okay, they're rebuilding. That is clear as day. They're blowing the thing up. They're rebuilding. We don't know what they're doing. I don't even think they know what they're doing to a degree. I think they have an idea of what they're doing, but there's no way to know what you're doing because they're going to free up all this cap. And the thing I brought up today on Twitter was, everyone talks about, they tell me, hey, Jake, 2024 is going to be the year. Don't fret. Don't sweat. 2024. Yeah, guys, what is 2024 going to do? Because yes, you have cap space, but cap space doesn't mean you have players, doesn't mean you have talent. They have $55 million in cap space and no dead money. That's great and all, but you also don't have Jalen Ramsey. You also don't have Leonard Floyd. You don't have Bobby Wagner. So are you going to replace those guys? How is that going to work? You also let Greg Gaines leave, Nick Scott. I mean, you need to find value with that cap space. That's the big thing here. And I think that's what kind of gets lost on people, because it's like, oh, cap space is nice and all. Like, by 2027 or 2026, the Rams will have $227 million in cap space. But who's on the roster at that point? Matthew Stafford? I think that's pretty much it. So, again, cap space is great, but, it's not always as simple as that. Havenstein has a void year in 2027. They moved Joseph Noteboom. They gave him a void year in 2026. He also has a void year in 2025. I mean, I don't know. Cap space is only as great as, the players that you get with it. So, there's no way that Snead would say that. So, Caleb Williams isn't coming out this year in the draft. He's not an option. And I don't think the Rams are going to be bad enough for them to pick number 1 overall to get Caleb Williams. And that's not going to be like a transferable pick. Like whoever has him number 1 overall, whoever has number 1 overall pick is going to select him. They're not going to trade that pick away. Because why are they picking number 1 overall? Clearly they don't have a quarterback if that's the case. Jake, the reason those guys got new contracts because they knew this was going to happen. They are okay with this throwaway season and be competitive. For that, they are being compensated. I wouldn't say you're wrong, but I wouldn't say that's the full truth because they were not under the impression this was going to happen necessarily. Kupp and Donald and whatnot. This kind of all came together. This was a decision they could have done, and like, here's my thing. What I keep hearing is that like people say, well, like this team, they had to do this. They didn't have to. Like, you don't have to necessarily do what the Rams are doing. And honestly, most teams don't. Look at how many teams sacrifice cap space. Look at how many teams, restructured this year, right? You don't have to do this. Pretty much the cap, like all of this cap, borrowing and whatnot, it's based on when you want to pay it back. I mean, it's like a line of credit essentially. So you don't have to. I mean, eventually you have to pay it back, but this wasn't the year they had to do it. Like we can say what they had to, but like, could they have? Did they have a pathway to $60 million in cap space? Yes, they did. They absolutely could have gone all in this year in a weaker NFC, kick the can down the road, hurt their long-term future for sure, but they also could have won a Super Bowl this year. That is an absolute thing that they could have done. It was a real possibility. I just see a lot of use of the word have to or have, the word, so to speak. I don't think they had to do anything. They chose to do this. Most teams, they're choosing not to. And in an easier year in the NFC, I mean, I don't know if I would have done this. I'll tell you right now, I would not have done this. I think they were in a position where you have Stafford, Kupp, and Donald. I don't think you do this. I don't think you waste a year of those. So I don't know. It's tough. Well, that's clear and obvious, but restructuring does not mean pay cut. Restructuring is moving money. You're moving money around. It's not a pay cut. I think that's also another like misconception about the offseason. When you restructure a deal, it's a player being unselfish and taking a pay. That's not always the case. Now, there are times where a restructure could mean that you are asking a player to take a pay cut. And in this case, the Rams did this with Leonard Floyd. They asked him if he would take a pay cut, and he said no. He restructured his deal last year to save the Rams $11 million in cap space, which meant more for them to have to pay next year, which is this year. And when they asked him to do it again, he said no, because he did not want to take a pay cut. That was a pay cut type of restructure. It wasn't moving money around. It was like, hey, can we like get rid of? No, he's not going to agree to that. So they let him go. That's just the way it is right now. They're in kind of this little rut, and I think the best thing to do right now is you look at the future. You don't have a first round pick. You got to stop, because while we can say they've done a nice job in the draft and they've hit on certain players and they've done, they've gotten Ernest Jones and they've gotten guys like that. The thing about the Rams that's holding them back, the thing that really is keeping them in this kind of, I guess purgatory if they don't get out of this anytime soon, the thing that really keeps them there is the fact that they're not getting premier talent in the draft. For every Cam Akers, Ernest Jones, Jacoby Durant, while we love those guys and they look very good and they're promising and they're pieces, they're not Fred Warner, they're not Aaron Donald, they're not Cooper Kupp, they're not, that's the thing. And so when you are constantly getting those guys in the draft and you're not finding, cornerstone players, and then you have to go and trade for them, I mean, you're basically doing the same thing over and over again. So eventually it's going to come back with you. And I think when you look at the Rams this year in the draft, when we say they just need to hit on the draft, it's not that simple. They need to hit on the draft and they need to find cornerstone key players. It can't just be, hey, we're going to keep this guy for 4 years and then we're going to let him go. We're talking about 2 contract players. We'll just say multi-contract players. They need to find multi-contract players. That's where they're at. So if they don't do that, if they don't find one of those guys or 2 of those guys in this draft, it could hurt them. I mean, the problem is a lot of what they're doing, they've made mistakes. And they're admitting to their mistakes. I would make the argument, I would even give them credit that there's no team in the NFL that admits to their mistakes as quick as the Rams do. The Rams own up. They're like, oh, we screwed up. We're going to make this move because we screwed up. The Goff deal, the Gurley deal, all that, we screwed up, right? They admit to their mistakes quickly. But the problem is they still make them. And every team makes them. But when you look, like, talking about Jared Goff today with people, it's like Jared Goff's stats, Jared Goff's production. Could you argue the Rams gave up too much for Stafford and didn't get enough in return for Jared Goff? Sure. I mean, it resulted in a Super Bowl, so no one's complaining. But could you argue that this first rounder this year should not be going to the Detroit Lions? Absolutely. You could argue that a first, a third, and Jared Goff should have been all it took. It should not have been 2 firsts, a second, and a third. Like, that's the thing, right? So you could argue that. You could absolutely argue that Jared Goff was, he had enough to his credit. He had enough production. He was a good enough contract. We talk about how bad his contract was. That's one of the most manageable contracts in the NFL for any quarterback in the league. Obviously not rookie contracts. When you look at what he's giving the Lions for the value he's giving them, I mean, how much he's getting paid, it's a pretty darn good deal for the Lions. So you could say that. You could say the fact that, okay, you go out and you get Jalen Ramsey, you pay 2 firsts, 2 firsts, a second, a fourth, whatever they gave up. They gave up a lot. For 4 years of an elite cornerback, and then you trade him away for a third and a third-round tight end who is depreciated as much as the car that you drove off the lot, 2 years ago. I mean, you could argue that was a mistake. They've made these mistakes. These are real. These are real issues the Rams have made. Like they've put themselves in this position by making these moves. But they won a Super Bowl. And they did go out and they did get they went out and got Odell. You could say they got lucky that Odell was released. That just happened to be a year where you have an arguably elite receiver become available right in the middle of your Super Bowl run. Von Miller, did they give up too much? Second, third rounder to not even bring him back. You could say, well, it led to a Super Bowl win. But, I mean, just because it led to a Super Bowl win doesn't mean that there was some flawed... There was some flaws in there. There were some kinks in there that might have, you could have done a little bit better. And that's always how we're going to look at it with any team. Because we get to go under a microscope and these guys have to actually do the work. So to be fair, I'm just a guy who's sitting here in a comfortable chair with my mic in front of me, talking like casual, not wearing a suit, just in my basement, right? Like with my backdrop and everything and talking with you guys live. I'm not a professional in this industry as far as being a general manager. I'm not a head coach. I never claimed to be, I'm just going from my perspective. And my perspective, when I get to look and I see, and this is part of my job because, I do this for a living right now, when I look and I check, I'm like, okay, yeah. In hindsight, because hindsight is always 20/20, I'm not the biggest fan of some of the moves they made. Now, I'll always love the Stafford trade, but you can love something and understand that something was somewhat flawed. And the fact of the matter is, you want to know why the Lions are a potential Super Bowl winner this year, a potential NFC title winner this year? You want to know why? It's because Les Snead gave them a big, big boost when they gave him Jared Goff for not really anything. They traded the picks for Stafford. Trading Goff didn't add any value to the trade. According to the trade itself, they're telling you that. You gave up 2 firsts and a second and I think a third for Stafford, but you didn't get anything for Jared Goff. You took a guy that you traded up. You gave up multiple first-round picks to go up and get from 15 to 1. He ends up being a pretty productive quarterback who's still young, and you got nothing for him. You threw him in a trade with Stafford. So, again, hindsight's 20/20. But, I mean, you know, in hindsight, you look at it and you're like, man, it's kind of weird how Snead didn't really get anything for Jared Goff. He was kind of throwing in the deal. Almost might have made more sense if the Rams got Stafford and then they traded Jared Goff to somewhere else. When you look, I mean, the Eagles got a first rounder for Carson Wentz. Sam Bradford he brought home 2 first rounders. Sam Bradford, like after the Rams tenure. So, it's one of those things. It makes you wonder. But, not having their pick this year, it's both extremely lucky for the Lions. I mean, they could not have gotten any more lucky than that. The Rams of all teams going 5-12. It's their worst record since Jeff Fisher was last year with the Rams. You could not have gotten any luckier. But you could argue, I don't know. You could argue that they gave up a little too much as far as giving up this pick this year. But then again, that's the Les Snead special. He gives up a lot, doesn't get much in return. Still a very good GM, top 10 in the league, but that's the way it is. And like I'm saying, yeah, absolutely. Was Stafford like a great trade? Yes. But in hindsight, now that Goff has actually performed pretty well and he's given the Lions a leg to stand on, it is fair and it is okay. Believe it or not, it's okay to just go back and review trades. It's okay to do that. So I don't even remember what led to that, but you guys, I think you get my point. Again, like I said, I give them plenty of credit because it's not something I'm currently doing. I think it's something I could learn. I think I could absolutely learn how to be a general manager in the NFL. I've been doing this stuff for fun for years. Picking apart caps, salary cap, signing bonus, all that. I've been doing this for years. Like just as a kid for fun. Well, like, I mean, think about it. Like I'm just a shut-in like nerd over this stuff, right? My friends would be at the bar and I'd be like, oh, sorry, I'm breaking down the salary cap of different teams. Can name every single starter on the offensive line of all 32 teams. This has always been something that I've wanted to do. I absolutely, if you gave me the time, if you trained me like anybody would be trained, I could absolutely be a general manager someday in the NFL. I'll never get that opportunity, but I could absolutely do it. I really believe that. But that being said, that doesn't mean that I'm better than Snead. That doesn't mean anything I say is supposed to be showing that I'm better than Snead. I think sometimes when you're in the position I'm in and you're sitting in this chair and you're talking on the mic and you have over 200 people watching you live, I think you get a bunch of people that absolutely love what you're putting out there and are listening to you and they're rooting for you and they're like, this is awesome. I love listening to this. And then you get some people that are just like kind of stragglers in this live stream and maybe they don't really love the content you put out, but they're tuning in because they're interested in the topic. And then they hear you saying stuff like negative about a GM or whatever. And they're like, oh, well, not like you could do any better. And it's like, I'm not saying that I could. Although I will say this, I'd be a better NBA GM than some of them out there because the NBA GMs are complete garbage. There are some that just are bad, but I digress. Anyway, back to my point. I'm not saying that I'm better than Snead or McVay, but it's not that I've taken a stance. It's not that I've chosen to be a certain negative person. It's not that I've looked at the analytics and been like, you know what? This year, I'm going to be heel Jake. I am going to go in on the Rams and I'm going to make people hate me for attention. That's not that. It's that for the first time in a while, I absolutely have disagreed with the way the Rams have handled this. I understand it. It makes sense logically. So when people are like, well, Jake, 2024, like, I know. Because I look at this stuff at 3 a.m. when you guys are asleep, hopefully people are getting more sleep than me. If you're not, you probably have problems. But I look at this stuff at 3 a.m. and I'm thinking, you know, while you're sleeping, like I'm up like just like trying to find different ways to make different things work in situations. It's not just it's across the board. It's not just the Rams. It's other teams. I'm just fascinated by this sport. I'm fascinated by the league. I love the NFL, and I love everything that goes into it. So, I mean, that's why. That's why I'm in all this stuff. But you look at like Odell, like I will now probably, you know, drive myself nuts trying to find ways to make it work for Odell and the Rams, or Odell and the Jets, or Odell and the Texans. I don't care. I always like doing that. Now, I'm also not stupid. I'm very understanding and appreciative of the time I'm living in because I realize how much more difficult it would be if I was in my dad's, era. You know, my dad used to do this when he would go through the film, right? Or not the film. He'd go through the draft and he would write. He had all the like notepads and stuff. I mean, where do you think I get this from? Apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And if you guys ever met my dad, you'd understand where I came from because we're very much cut from the same cloth. But the whole point that I'm making here is that when, you know, back in the day, like when people watch my videos, like I appreciate you guys watching my videos and like the, you know, just the different YouTube shorts that I'm making about the NFL draft. I realize how freaking lucky I am to be making content in this era of media, in this era of culture. It is so easy. And it's not like I haven't worked my tail off. It's not like I'm trying to dumb myself down in my accomplishments, but it's so much easier now than it was back then. And I recognize that, right? So while, yes, I may be smart, I may know what I'm talking about, I understand big time that I'm very fortunate. I could go online. I could look up Spotrac. It takes me 2 seconds. Spotrac's been taking a little bit longer lately. But Over the Cap, like I can turn on Over the Cap, and now all of a sudden I can learn about the Rams salary cap or any team's salary cap in seconds. I mean, I'm so fortunate for that. To be able to grow up in this time period, like where I have technology at my fingertips, grow up. Not necessarily, I'm in my mid-30s, but you guys get what I'm saying, is that I understand it. And so, you know, really, I just think, you know, at the end of the day, yeah, Snead is a top 10 GM. The Rams are doing what they can. I disagree with some of it, but I'm not saying that they're bad at their job. I'm definitely not calling for anybody's job. But I'm always fascinated about all this stuff. And so, you know, if you're wondering why I continue to talk about the salary cap, continue to talk about certain moves and whatnot, because I remember them all. Like, I remember all of the trades. I remember where I was at when Mark Barron, I was at Olympia Sports, which I don't even think they're around anymore. It was my first job working at a sports store, sporting goods store, whatever. And I was at Olympia Sports, and I was working, and my boss tells me the Rams just traded a 6th rounder or 5th rounder for Mark Barron from the Buccaneers. And that is when the Rams moved him into that pseudo linebacker role, which he thrived in. I loved Mark Barron. You know, that I said mid-30s, I meant mid-20s. My bad. I'm 27. So, I mean, I don't even know if it's mid anymore. I guess it's late 20s. So, yeah, I don't know why I said mid 30s. Mid 20s. I'm 27, guys. I'll be 28 in October. Don't remind me. It pisses me off. But anyway, you know how that aging is. But yeah, like I remember where I was when that trade was made. I was also at the same freaking location when the Rams made that trade. When Les Snead comes out, it's like, yeah, you can't just delete Sam Bradford. And then he went on and deleted Sam Bradford for not a first round pick like the Eagles asked, but instead he took a second so he could get Nick Foles. I remember being upset about that and all of that, whatever. I've watched all sorts of moves that they've made in the past. And like I remember when they signed Jarius Norwood. Do you guys remember Jarius Norwood? Remember that running back from Atlanta? You know, I mean, I don't know, man. I follow this team like crazy, but I follow the NFL like crazy. There's probably, I mean, I'm sure there's transactions that you could throw at me that have gone over my head, but for the most part, I would remember most of them. We did have super chats, and I apologize for not responding to them because I appreciate you guys for donating. Fernando, thank you for the 5. I think signing OBJ makes sense. We have some stars to have fans come to SoFi, where we with Jonah Williams. Heard he gonna take a 3. Well, Jonah Williams, that would be interesting. He'll be a free agent next year. I don't know where they would be on that. I'm really not sure. And I think the thing that holds up the Rams here is the question mark of Allen Robinson. What happens with Allen Robinson? You know, if they can't trade Allen Robinson, they're going to be limited to certain things. They might even have to restructure him, which I'm sure is something they don't want to do. But the way his contract is at, 18 million cap hit this year, they're going to have to figure something out. And they can't cut him. Does not matter what anyone says. You cannot cut Allen Robinson. It will kill your cap. Quite literally, you will have negative cap. You will have negative money that you're saving. It does not free up any sort of money. Now, if you cut him post June 1st, that might be an option. That would save $2.8 million while incurring a $2.8 million cap hit. So basically, the point is, I don't know if Allen Robinson is going to get traded. The market seems kind of dry right now. And if he doesn't get traded, then they might have to. Oh, I'm sorry. That's wrong. I was in the wrong year. Let's see. If they cut Allen Robinson, they incur $26 million in dead money, and they save negative $8.4 million in cap space. If they cut him post June 1st, they incur zero. They save $0, and they incur the entire $18 million in dead money. So that is probably something that they'll do. They'll either cut him post June 1st, or they'll try to trade him pre June 1st and save some space, or they'll try to trade him post June 1st and still try to save some space. But either way, I don't think he plays for the Rams in 2023, which is sad because I think he could do something in this offense fully healthy. I don't think it's going to happen. Again, thank you so much for the 5. I appreciate that. My question is regarding cash over cap. Could an OBJ cap hit be low, like $4 million, but offer more of a signing bonus and incentives that increases pay? Yes, they could absolutely do that. They have a lot of cash next year, so they could tack it on to next year's bill. And I think that's what the Rams would probably do in an OBJ type of deal. That'd probably be the best way to do it. What's up, Eric? How's it going? And then last, Temple Hills Funk, appreciate you for the 5. Boy, when winning a Super Bowl isn't enough, we're all in trouble. It's not that it isn't enough, because winning a Super Bowl is the ultimate prize, of course. And I was humbled a little bit because I totally expected this team right here, actually both these teams, I thought both these teams would run it back, and they did not. At least Kansas got to the postseason, but they lost in the second round to Arkansas. I did get over that loss, by the way. I will say go UConn. I hope they beat the brakes off of Arkansas, and I will never like Arkansas, but I'm over the loss. Moving on. The Rams, that season I'm over 5-12. It was brutal. It made me, it made me upset. It's hitting me pretty recently. It started to hit me now because, the Rams really aren't just going for it. It really started to hit me that the Rams are not going to have a first round pick after all that, after going through that type of season, not having the 6th overall pick. Just really painful, especially going to a team that could probably end up winning the Super Bowl this year. Just painful. You talk about the different guys. And I think really when it hit me is when you're doing all that draft research, you're watching all this draft tape, and you're watching these edge defenders. Like, I just watched Will Anderson. You want to tell me Will Anderson wouldn't be a dynamic force off the edge with the same defense as Aaron Donald? Who needs a secondary if you have Will Anderson and Aaron Donald rushing the passer? My Lord. I mean, talk about when you watch this guy play, he reminds me of DeMarcus Ware. Now, I haven't really gotten too much in the edge defenders. More will be coming out. More videos will be coming out. I'm done with the running backs, quarterbacks. Now I'm on the edge. I'll do corner. I think I'll do corner. And then I'll go to wide receiver and then offensive line. I'm going to mix and match. I'm going to do whatever I'm feeling. I'm not going to be stuck to the natural order of positions like I normally do. Sean, thank you for the 5. What if the front office and Snead looked at every player that would be a free agent in 2024 from each team, and that's why they're freeing a lot of cap? So that is definitely a possibility. And something I want to point out today is I went through and I actually, I went through the 2024, the whole 2024 thing, right? So let's see. I had a tweet that I sent out. So my big thing was, all these people are always saying 2024, but what exactly do you expect the Rams to do with that cap space? I wasn't trying to be a jerk. I was just curious, right? I want to know, the comments, and I may not be able to get to everybody's comments, but I try to read all of them or most of them. Here are some of the biggest names in free agency next year. You got Saquon Barkley, not mentioned. You have Tony Pollard, T. Higgins, TJ Hawkinson, Jonah Williams, Robert Hunt. You have Lloyd Cushenberry, Chase Young, Brian Burns, Josh Allen, the edge defender Josh Allen, Alex Highsmith, Montez Sweat, Rashawn Gary. You got Devin White, Trayvon Diggs, Jalen Johnson, L'Jarius Snead, and Antoine Winfield Jr. Those were some big names that I mentioned. All of those guys are 27 and below heading into 2024. So obviously still younger, but they're going to be 27 or below heading into 2024. So are they looking at those guys? My feeling, my thought process would be that they'd be interested in a guy like Jalen Johnson, built for the position, can be that physical corner on the outside. Another guy that they could be interested in is Chase Young. Chase Young is not going to have his 5th year. His 5th year wasn't picked up. So he will be a free agent next year. Washington is moving on. They're worried about the injuries. Maybe they're not moving on. Maybe they'll just, they'll sign him to a deal after the season if he blows up. But they didn't want to be committed to it if he doesn't. And I get that, right? So I don't know. I mean, that is something I think, to me, when you look at Chase Young, yeah, the injuries are definitely something that concern me. But, I think that he's a fantastic football player, and what better way to kind of bring in the new era post Aaron Donald than having Chase Young be your kind of cornerstone defensive line piece. And I think the way teams are building, we talk about the Chiefs all the time. You look at the Chiefs, you got Chris Jones. That's your big cornerstone trench piece on the defensive line. You're going to have to figure out a way to pay the offensive line, whatever. But they do have, they just traded for a player, right? Why am I blanking on what the Chiefs did on the offensive line? They just traded for someone, if I'm not mistaken, or they signed somebody big. I don't know why I'm totally blanking on the Chiefs. This is when Jake being a human totally comes to light. Juwan Taylor. So they got a trench piece on the offensive line, Juwan Taylor. They got a trench piece in the defense on the defensive line, Chris Jones. right? We don't know who their piece is going to be if they decide to sign Nick Bolton or Willie Gay, but odds are they probably will let those guys go and continue to draft linebackers. Who knows? When you look at the secondary, they have a key piece in Justin Reed. They're paying him big money. So when you do that, you have Patrick Mahomes, you have, Travis Kelce. Those are your big pieces. So if that's the way you're building your team now is you have, say, let's break it up like this. You got Mahomes, you got Kelce, and you got Juwan Taylor and Thuney, right? So with Thuney, Taylor, Kelce, and Mahomes, that is 4 contracts, big cornerstone contracts on your offense. On your defense, you got Chris Jones and you got Justin Reed. That's it. Those are your big paid guys on the defense. So if that's what the Rams are doing, if that's what they're trying to do, and you can have 4, and typically you want them spread out, right? The Rams, they have Stafford, they have Kupp, they have Havenstein, right? And then there could be another guy on the offensive line that they could pay. And Noteboom right now would be that guy, but hopefully they figure that out. Defensive line, they have Aaron Donald. Secondary, they have nobody. So leads me to believe the Rams could find another cornerstone piece on the defense. And I really feel like if that's the case, Chase Young would very much be in play. And it's also a better pass rushing class. It's a better edge defender class than recent memory, I would say. And because of that, I think Chase Young's contract might not be brutal. Like that's the thing. When you look at the tackles next year, okay, the tackles in the 2024 free agency, the tackles are not great. I said that right now. The class is #not good. So Jonah Williams is going to get paid. Even if he's average, he's going to get paid. Supply and demand. If the demand is greater than the supply of the tackle, he's going to get paid. I already see it. So he'll get paid big time money, but maybe a guy like I mentioned, Chase Young. I'm not saying Brian Burns is going to be available because honestly, I don't think he is. I think the Panthers are going to pay him. I believe it. Why would they not? Why would you not pay him? I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't know why the Panthers would ever entertain trading away Brian Burns. Doesn't mean I don't want him. That's not a guy I'm getting rid of. Montez Sweat. Nope. Washington is choosing either Montez Sweat or Chase Young. They'll be choosing Montez Sweat. Chase Young will be a free agent. He'll be in play. Josh Allen, you think the Jaguars are just going to let him go? They do have Trayvon Walker. But I don't know. If you can afford it, I think you pay Josh Allen. Pass rushers are hard to come by. Alex Highsmith, do the Steelers let him go? I mean, they got J.J. Watt. Maybe they do. And if that's the case, Highsmith is the guy that no one wants to ever give credit. No one talks about. But he would be a great fit for the Rams. So I like those guys. I like Jalen Johnson. Les Snead, I think, would fit the Rams defense like a glove. And Antoine Winfield Jr. would be fantastic in this Rams defense. But, what if they're not into, maybe they're not going to pay secondary. It'll be very interesting to see what they use this cap space on. And the question then remains, are they going to go and do the same exact thing? Is this just a reset? Is this a reset year so they could go and just back to all or nothing? Is that just, you know what I mean? Like, are they just trying to do a reset so they can go back to being all in, making big trades? I hope not. I mean, I understand if they're doing a reset so they can build this thing the right way and not resort to just making all those trades, I'm all for that. But if they're doing this to just get back to where they were when they were just trading away picks left and right, I gotta say I'm not the biggest fan of that. To me, I don't think that's what they're doing. I think they're trying to build their team the right way. while still trying to stay competitive for the veterans. And like I said, I'm not the biggest fan of it, but they go out, they get Odell, that offense. Maybe they get some draft picks for the offense as well. I mean, you're looking, I think, at a team that can score a lot of points like the Lions last year. Defense struggles and they win 7 to 9 games. And then 2024 wheels up with the cap space and beyond, That's where I'm at. I'm curious. I'm going to do a poll here. I'm going to do a poll real quick. All right, I'm almost done here. All right, there it is. There is the poll. Also, if you guys haven't already, be sure to hit the thumbs up, also known as the like button. We're at 94 likes. We got 217 people in here. If we could get to 200 likes, that would be fantastic. It's free. It helps out the channel, and you don't have to do a damn thing. Let's see here. Also, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. That also helps out the channel and is also free. Last time I checked. So, yeah. I do want OBJ back in the squad. And I think it's more possible than people are giving it credit for. I think it's real. Like I think there's definitely some realism there. I'm not saying it's 100% done or it's going to happen, but I think it's definitely possible. So we got F them picks at 16%, build through the draft at 84%. This is, let's keep this poll going. I want to see where people are at. See, to me, by making this stance, by taking this stance, I think you have to, in my opinion, I think you have to build through the draft. Like, I don't think, I don't see why you would do this just to then get yourself in the same issue. Here's the analogy I would use. If the Rams did this again, if they went back and they did F them picks again after taking a year off from it, right? Let's say the year off, instead of going out and having fun with your friends and partying and spending all your money on different appliances and getting a new TV, new Xbox, new computer, all of that, and maxing out your credit card, 2023, you decide to be responsible. You pay off that credit card all the way through to then only in 2024 decide, you know what? I'm going to max out my credit card again. I'm going to put myself into debt. I'm going to make myself uncomfortable so I could get, I don't even know. Like, what's the point of that? You already got the most out of the credit card. You paid it off, or you're paying it off now. Why would you go and max it out? Once you get out of debt, why would you go and max it out again? And that, to me, is why F them picks doesn't make any sense. If they do that again, it doesn't make sense. To a degree. F them picks works, yes. but it's not foolproof, and it puts yourself into an uncomfortable situation. It's the same thing like carrying credit on your credit card. You can carry credit on your credit card forever, right? I mean, if it's large enough, you're barely ever going to pay it off because of interest. So you can carry credit on your credit card. Be like, I'm just going to pay it off. I'm just going to, I'm just going to use the minimum payment and all that. You can absolutely do that. But here's the problem. Interest you're basically paying the interest off. At this point, you've paid more in interest than you paid on paid for the items that you used for like the credit on. So my point is that why would you it just doesn't make sense. Like if you just paid off your credit card, why would you then be like, I know what I'm going to do to celebrate paying off my credit card entirely and being debt free. I'm going to go and accrue more debt than I've ever accrued before. Why would you do that? Like F them picks it means you're going all out. You're trading for all of your core pieces. You're not even giving the talent on your roster a chance to bloom. Like, that's the thing. F them picks is like, all right, core guys are going to be Jalen Ramsey. They're going to be, guys like Von Miller, although you didn't bring him back. Guys like that. Like, F them picks, we've seen it works. But don't you want to have a chance at sustained success? Don't you want to have a chance? And that's my thing. I am not against F them picks. Because I was just saying I would have kicked the can down the road again. But I'm saying if you are making this decision to have the 2023 season you're having, get rid of Jalen Ramsey and Leonard Floyd and Bobby Wagner and all of that, if you are making that decision, then that needs to be the stoppage. I will no longer eat fast food. Okay, so then you go an entire year without eating fast food, and then very next year, the moment June 1st hits, I'm going to go and eat fast food. And you do it the whole year, and then you gain all that weight that you supposedly lost. You're feeling good, but now you get rid of all that. What is the point? It's like going back to a vice. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't mean I'm against F them picks. It means I'm against going back to something that you've said, yes, it works, but it doesn't allow you to have sustained success over the years. And I didn't know that, and I'm sure you guys didn't know that until they admitted it to us. That's the big thing. They admitted to us that it works, but you can't have sustained success with it. So, God, if I give any more analogies, people are going to be losing their minds. So I'll probably stop with that. But you get my point. Poor Alex over there is really feeling it with the credit card one. My voice is also feeling it for going live. I can't wait until it's nicer out. See, when it gets warmer, my voice gets a lot better. I think in the cold or whatever, for whatever reason, my voice is always just... it's hit or miss. You'd be surprised how much emphasis I have to put on my voice just to get it to sound okay. Brutal. Well, I'm not a Jets fan. I like the Jets, but I cover the Jets. I'm not necessarily a fan. I think Stafford to the Jets would make sense if they don't get Rodgers. If for whatever reason the whole Rodgers thing falls through, then yeah, I think that they could call up the Rams, be desperate. They're a quarterback away. They call up the Rams like, hey, we'll give you 2 first-rounders for Stafford. The Rams would do that. I think that they would. At this point, I mean, if the Rams are all in on their offense, that doesn't make any sense. If they're not all in on their offense and really they're totally rebuilding, but they're just trying not to make it obvious because they don't want to hurt, season ticket sales and all of that, then okay, then you don't, you trade them. But I don't know. I could see it it's not going to happen, but stranger things, I guess, have happened. But I don't think it's going to happen. If Rodgers didn't go to the Jets, then I think they would absolutely get desperate and try to acquire Stafford from the Rams. And I think that they would give the Rams enough to really think about in terms of that. So, that's funny. That is funny. Rams would trade him for a 4th rounder and a Big Mac meal with a large Coke Zero. That was very descriptive. Is that your meal? Is that your go-to? The Big Mac meal with a large Coke Zero? Very, very descriptive, Nathan. That's funny, though. Perhaps. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. Oh, no, you got to go with the fries, man. My man has me on while he's going through the drive-thru. I appreciate it. I think so. I wouldn't rule it out. Would not rule it out. The Rams aren't ruling it out. He's not ruling it out. By the way, did you guys see that Chris Greer, the GM for the Dolphins, he asked, all right, let's give a round of applause for Les Snead, okay? Chris Greer asked for a late round pick and Jalen Ramsey. So in addition to Jalen Ramsey, he basically thought that he wasn't getting enough. So he asked for a late round pick and Snead said no. So while that return, in my opinion, was pathetic, at least Snead didn't give him a pick, because you guys know how I feel about that. My friend Michael King said it best. It's almost like the rich guy, he uses picks to tip. It's like a flex. And Snead used to just basically tip with those picks. I don't know. I thought it was kind of a funny analogy. It felt that way, man. It was like when Les Snead would make a trade, it'd always be like, oh, we're going to also attach a 7th rounder with the play. Like, why are we trading picks away? We're trading the talent. We're trading the talent for picks. Stop. They don't need another pick. They're getting Jalen Ramsey. I'm glad that he put his foot down and didn't allow that. Not hating on Chris Greer for trying to get more. I mean, that's what a negotiation is. And honestly, if you do that with Les Snead, that's smart. But I'm giving Les Snead credit for not taking that. It does, depending on how much his contract will be, because what's your plan? He's going to be a free agent next year. And also, how much would you give up? I would not do more than a 3rd round pick. I would not trade for Jonah Williams more than a 3rd round pick for Jonah Williams. Here's a guy I want to bring up. And by the way, build through the draft is at 76%. We have 24% for F them picks. Oh, absolutely. Allen Robinson will be gone, and they'll take a 5th round pick will go with him. I'm telling you right now. They're going to have to give up a pick to get rid of A-Rob, which, again, you're giving up the talent. I understand they're taking the contract a little bit, but I don't know. Something weird about that. Anyway, absolutely got to. Anyway, here's my thing. Wanted to pitch something to you guys before I hop off here. We talked about him last year. I said he's a one-read quarterback. I like him. He's very toolsy, but he doesn't have a lot of experience in an NFL offense. That was my biggest knock on him. Matt Corral. Where do you guys stand on him? The Panthers reportedly could move him for very cheap. They're not trying to get the King's ransom. What would you give up for him, and would you give up anything? Would you trade for him? Because to me, if they're not trying to give up the King's ransom, I offer them a 6th-round pick. You get a 6th-round pick, you give it away, you get a developmental quarterback for cheap. You currently only have one quarterback on the roster. I don't know. I think it makes sense. I'm not the biggest Corral fan. I'm not like, oh, this guy is going to be a superstar. But I don't know. When you only have one quarterback on the roster, I think you give up a 6th for him. I think it makes sense. You draft Matt Corral in the 6th round. You put him with Sean McVay. You try to develop him, and then you draft a quarterback and you figure it out. I think that might be the best course of action. I don't know if necessarily that's the case, but I mean, I haven't seen that, but who knows? I don't know what these teams are talking about behind closed doors. We don't really know. We're only told what the aftermath is, but Agreed. I would give a 4th-round pick and a Big Mac meal with a large Coke Zero. I knew that was coming. Mike White is already a Dolphin, so that's not possible. And he signed a pretty decent deal. $8 million per year. I was not expecting that deal. Yeah, I mean, we'll see, but Perkins is now a free agent, so. All right, guys. It's been an hour and about 16 minutes or so. Appreciate you guys being in here. I hate, turning off the lights with over 200 people in here, but I know you guys will be back next time, so it makes me feel a little bit better. Anyway, I love y'all. Everyone be safe. Everyone stay healthy, and I'll see you guys soon. Later, folks. You ever get those ridiculous social media scams where people pretend to be somebody you're friends with and tell you can make a lot of money? I know I do. It's why I'm very excited to partner with today's sponsor, Aura. Aura is an easy-to-use app that essentially packages a bunch of services to stay safe online all in one. Aura protects you from scammers and hackers. They scan the web for all sorts of data leaks and alert you as soon as they find anything. Aura is like the offensive line for a quarterback, consistently offering you protection from suspicious and malicious activity. They have a VPN built in that keeps your browsing history and personal information safe and encrypted. They'll even alert you if someone's trying to open up a credit card or a loan in your name. Did I mention they protect all your devices from viruses, malware, spyware, and any other things so the bad guys can't break in? Aura can even manage what your kids do on their devices. You can set limits and restrict them from specific apps. They have a password manager as well, so you don't have to rely on an outdated Rolodex or that sticky note that's been on your desk forever. There are apps that do all of these things, but there isn't one that tackles everything the way Aura does, which is why I say Aura is a 5-man offensive line and you're the quarterback. So head on over to aura.com/JKB. You can find it in the description and start your free trial today.